Hello, everybody, and welcome again to our environmental justice lessons. My name is Natisha Washington, and I'm the environmental justice organizer for 412 Justice. Today, we're going to talk about what is environmental justice? What does environmental justice even mean, and what issues are covered under it? We hope you enjoy this lesson, so let's get started. So let's start with what is environmental justice? The EPA defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of people regardless of their race, color, or income. This is in respects to the implementation, development, enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, or policies. The father of environmental justice, Dr. Robert Bullard, defined environmental justice as embracing the principle that all people and communities have a right to equal protection and equal enforcement of environmental laws and regulations. Dr. Bullard was a catalyst in the environmental justice movement, publishing his work Dumping into Dixie in the 1990s, where he was the first to address the reality of environmental injustices. His book followed 5 communities of color that were trying to safeguard their communities from their health and their homes being affected by lethal pollution. In October of 1991, him, along with other grassroots organizers, planned the first National People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. This 4-day summit led to the 17 principles of environmental justice that were adopted as a national reference to how we should deal with environmental justice issues. Not only did they advocate for the environment, but they also talked about issues around quality education, employment, housing, the health of their physical environment, and the health of residents that live within environmental justice communities. Now, I know you're probably wondering, what is an environmental justice community? Well, the Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP for short, defines environmental justice communities as being 20% or more below the federal poverty line and consisting of a population of 30% or more non-white minorities, based on the data of the U.S. Census Bureau. Not too long after their release of their 2020 Environmental Justice Plan, the EPA opened up their Office of Environmental Justice. This agency would be looking over all of their efforts to integrate environmental justice into their policies, programs, and activities. Dr. Bullard was named as one of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council members, along with other environmental advocates like Peggy Shepard, Latrice Adams, and Jade Begay. Often I hear, how is this different than all the climate change, global warming, environmental issues that we hear on the news every day? Well, environmentalism is the concern and action around protecting our environment. Climate change is the long-term effects that we see in our temperature and our weather, as we see a lot of our winters getting shorter or happening in different times of the year. And environmental justice is ensuring that communities, especially those that are low income and minority dense, usually around factories and other environmental hazards, are not suffering the harms and burden of our environmental issues. Environmental justice covers a multitude of issues. Some of the most common issues we find in Allegheny County is our long history with air pollution, our low quality of water that is sometimes filled with lead, PFAS, and often unaffordable for many residents, our infrastructure needs that include weatherization of houses, the fixing up of our streets and sidewalk, and obtaining vacant properties so that we can have more first-time home buyers in our community. Some other issues can include education needs, mobility, and food access, but at the core of all of these issues is the health of our residents. Many of the things we advocate for is stemmed around a lot of health disparities we find in environmental justice communities, from high childhood asthma rates to COPD to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and many other health issues that commonly affect Black Americans. We find that a lot of these are correlated to also environmental issues, from the pollution that we find in the sky, the water that we drink, to even having the access of walking around the community. So let's start with air pollution. Now, Allegheny County has had a long history of air pollution where we had soot so heavy that it covered the skies, making our days mostly dark. This pollution is still an issue, even though it's not covering our skies anymore. But now it's an issue where these small, fine pollutants called particulate matter are filling our skies, as well as many other pollutants like hydrogen sulfide, benzene, and other things that can cause respiratory issues such as childhood asthma or COPD. With no formal way to warn residents about these bad air days that are happening in their community, they often go missed, but people often know that they're happening because they will go outside and get headaches, irritated eyes, have trouble breathing, with many pollutants being named as causes for many cancers. When it comes to water issues, we often focus on our water quality, whether it's having lead, PFAS, or any other pollutants in it that could cause our residents harm. During our lead crisis, we had some of the worst water quality in the nation, being higher than Flint when it came to our lead consumption. Not only do we want to ensure that our water is safe to drink, but we also want to ensure that residents can afford the water that they have, making sure that privatized companies aren't raising their rates, as well as providing customer assistance programs to residents through all utility programs. In addition to this, we also deal with flooding issues that are often a mobility issue and a health issue because of the basement flooding that many residents experience. Basement floodings can lead to higher chances of asthma attacks as well as other respiratory attacks and can damage the respiratory system of anybody who is even healthy because of the mold that grows from those floodings. Now, speaking of mobility, we also are big on infrastructure improvements. We want to make sure that our streets are safe, that we don't have cracks in our sidewalk, that we don't have potholes in our street, and that vacant properties are being maintained and renovated for future first-time home buyers. We want to make sure that homes that even aren't vacant are weatherized and energy efficient. We want to have solar panels. We want to make sure that people are using clean energy, and we want people to have cheaper bills as well. With infrastructure improvements comes the need for a workforce. And we want to ensure that not only are people who are unemployed, have low income, or just want a better job are being put into these positions, but we want to ensure that people that are in fossil fuel industries currently are also being transitioned to this more sustainable workforce. Now, I didn't mention this much before, but education is a primary issue in environmental justice as well. Not only do we want to educate the residents about what environmental justice is and the issues around it, but we also want to make sure that our youth are being educated about these issues. Environmental justice is a long, complicated issue that directly affects us in many ways, and we want to ensure that residents understand what we're talking about no matter what their age is. In July of 2022, the UN recognized a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a human right, which it is. Especially in low-income Black communities, this is a hazard that is affecting us every day and is getting worse by the year. With environmental justice, we can prioritize the needs of our community, ensure that we have proper investment into those communities with all this money that is coming in, and address the core issues that affects us personally. If you haven't already heard, the EPA launched a $100 million environmental justice grant, which is the largest of its kind. It is mainly focused to help underserved and overburdened communities across the country, and applications are due April 10th of this year. Thank you for joining us for this environmental justice lesson, which now I'm probably going to shorten to EJ because I feel like I've said environmental justice 50 million times today. But next week, we will not be having a lesson. We will actually be having our environmental justice community meeting. So if you haven't already, RSVP at the link below, and we hope to see you at that meeting. Again, I'm Natisha Washington, and you can follow us and learn more about our environmental justice advocacy at 412justice.org, or you can check out us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at 412justice. Thank you again for joining us for this lesson. We hope to see you at the next one and to see you at our upcoming environmental justice meeting. Have a great day, everybody. Good night.